You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is Monday. It is a little bit past 2 p.m. Central here. Time for a little bit of the Crypto Rundown. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are mainlining these days. Hope you're having a good start to your trading week. If you're focused on the crypto side and you're a hodler, maybe not. We'll get to all that fun in a little bit. Of course, if you're new to the world of options, you're just checking this show out, coming from the crypto world, hey, welcome. A lot of you joining all the time. B, there's a whole network out there, nearly a dozen shows that you're missing. So if you're maybe a little bit timid, a little bit afraid of the options waters, don't worry. We got you covered here. We got shows like Options Bootcamp, get you up to speed, Options Playbook Radio, hundreds of archived episodes of those for you to check out. Just subscribe to the full network. It's all there. If you want to get a little bit more active, Option Block, talking about unusual activity, options trading. This Week in Futures Options. We touch on crypto there, as well as other products lighting it up over there on CME, maybe energy, maybe equities, maybe metals. You never know what's going to light it up there every week. Volatility views at the end of every week to break down the week from a volatility perspective. So a lot of different ways we carve the onion here on the network. It's all available for you. Just wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, make sure you're subscribed to the full network. Then, of course, when you're ready, when it's time to pull the trigger to go above and beyond, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Great pro Q&As out there, including a lot of ones that touch on crypto volatility in many different ways. So if you have questions about all things crypto and vol and the derivative side and the skew and all that fun, and hey, who doesn't? It's crazy out there. Make sure you're checking out the pro. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more as we head right on into the Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin breakdown, the portion of the show where we break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yep, we're talking about the big dog, ye old BTC. And as I mentioned at the start of the show, Might be a rough one for the hodlers out there. BTC looking a little bit lighter. Quite a bit lighter, actually, than it was this time a week ago. Coming into the start of the show, 60,258. That's where we were hanging out. That's far below, over 6,800 handles below where we were this time a week ago. 67,067 to be precise. That's where we were on the show last week. You might be saying, man, that's perilously close to that psychologically important 60K level. And you would be correct. We did break through it earlier this afternoon, actually. Got down to 59,936. So ever so slightly below that psychologically pivotal 60K level. That's probably to blame for some of the vol and skew numbers we're going to talk about in a little bit. Right now, obviously, we've managed to retrace back north of it, but it's anyone's ball game where we'll go throughout the course of the show, and of course, where we'll be later on today, let alone later on this week. Interesting times out there. A lot of analysis of what is driving down Bitcoin. At the end of the day, listeners, more sellers than buyers. That's what these have beat into my head on the early days when I first walked onto the floor of the Chicago Board Options Exchange, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, straight out of school. And the old-timers, I would say, why is the stock up today? And they'd say, more buyers than sellers, kid. And I would thought they were deeply cynical old bastards. And I was right, but also they were right. So, intriguing things afoot out there. A lot going on out there. A lot of people who crunch the numbers on the Bitcoin front, saying also, as you would expect, we're getting into the somewhat quiet summer months. Paper starting to dry up out there. Bitcoin whale's been a lot less active over the past few sessions than they were most of the last previous week. So roughly 50% curtailing in terms of size transactions. So that could also be playing a factor out here as well. It's just that time of year, listeners. We were just talking about on the option block program earlier today. On the full options market, things are pretty light. Outside of NVIDIA, which is lighting things up every day. Outside of that, the volume kind of hard to come by. It's just that time of year. In June, you don't really see a lot of paper traditionally in all markets on the derivatives front, and that seems to be the case out there. So in these thin markets, it's easy for Bitcoin and other underlying assets to make big moves, and that's pretty much what we're seeing out here right now. Can we maintain north of 60K, or when we come back this time a week from now, listeners, will we be hanging out substantially lower? Only time will tell. Let's see what's breaking down here on the vol and skew front. Remember, all of our Bitcoin and our ETH volatility and skew, all those cool analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Amber Data. AmberData.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires out there. Make sure you're checking out Greg's newsletter they put out there on Twitter every week. It's some fascinating data. If you like this stuff, they go really deep into the weeds in that. So check that out if you're not doing so. Let's start on the near-dated vol front and move our way out. And as I mentioned, we just broke through that psychologically important 60K level just an hour and change ago. So bear that in mind as we're crunching all this data, because that's going to wreak havoc with the vol and the skew and everything else we're going to talk about here today. Let's go out in the weekly vol and then go from there. And as you might expect, it's looking a little bit frothier out there right now. Now, traditionally, Bitcoin has been an asset that's kind of the reverse of what we see out there in the broad equity derivatives, which is the puts are bid and the calls are offered from a volatility perspective. Bitcoin's usually been the other way around. People don't really want the puts, they want the calls because they're bullish, they're hodlers. So they bid those up. They don't really love the puts, except when we start breaking through some of these psychologically pivotal levels, like 60K. Once that happens, all bets are off. Then people start to get a little bit spooked. They start bidding up these puts. Vol starts to pop. Usually as you trend down, you don't see vol really popping. We are seeing that this week. 7-day vol, weekly vol popping almost exactly 6 points. We had a 44.7 last week. Again, seemed like we were heading into that summer malaise, vol drifting lower, and then bam, this week hit 60K, vol pops nearly 6 points, 50.6 right now in the weekly vol. And again, it's hard to argue that. We are hanging out right at the precipice. So people are going to want some protection in those environments. 30-day vol, looking a little bit juicier as well. 47.6 on the show last week, 49 even coming into the start of the show today. I'm sure if we racked it, let's say an hour ago, right as we were breaking through the 60K level, it probably would have been even higher out there because, again, people getting a little bit concerned out there in all things Bitcoin as we're breaking these key pivotal psychological levels out there, listeners. In fact, tell you what, let's look right now on the old Amber Data platform to see how high did we get on the weekly vol. Looks like we got up to about a little while ago, we got up to about a 50.64. So again, popping 1.6 points above where we are right now. Once we got back through it, maybe people starting to exhale the concern, starting to mitigate a little bit. Looks like on the 30-day front, we're pretty much still at, again, you don't expect 30-day vol to be as responsive as what we're seeing out there on the weekly vol. On 30-day vol, the high was about 49.1. So we're pretty much right about at the apex for the 30-day vol. 6-month vol, 180-day vol, we're at about a 61 this time a week ago. Guess what? 61 right now. So hodlers not really getting spooked by this sell-off out here, which is kind of interesting. You might expect a little bit of action out there, but it's been pretty much locked right around that 61 level for the better part of the last week. So not a lot of evolution out there on the 6-month vol. Let's get out to the skew front, see what's popping off. And not surprised, a little bit of evolution there as well. On the weekly skew front, listeners, we were at a positive 0.5 last week, so pretty much flat. And then we are at a negative 0.6 right now, so swinging over a point to the dark side out there. Looks like, let's see, how low did we go intraday? We got to about a negative 1.5 right when we started breaking through 60K level, giving some of that back now. But still, I mean, if we start breaking through or threatening 60K again, I expect that bearish bias to kick in yet again. Like the highest the bearish skew got over the past week was actually back on Friday, which is kind of interesting. We got to almost a -5, about a -4 3/4. So even though we're breaking through 60K today, saw some impressive bearish skew popping in right on Friday, which is kind of interesting. Let's go a little bit farther out. Let's go out 30 days on the skew front, see what's popping off there. We were a +1 last week, so mostly flat, slightly bullish. This week, a -0.3, so swinging over a point to the bearish direction as well, but still mostly flat out there. Again, not a ton of evolution, and you wouldn't expect the 30-day vol to, or skew, I should say, to make a huge change today. And we pretty much, we're at about the low for the day right now still. And 180-day vol, or I should say 180-day skew. So 6-month skew out there, listeners. What's lighting up out there? The answer is it was a positive 3.9 this time a week ago. This week, I guess folks like this as a buying opportunity because positive 4.5, getting a little bit more biased towards the upside there, which is kind of interesting. Let's move on to some of the products you folks like to trade in your securities account as your crypto proxies. Are folks seeing this as a buying opportunity? At least for right now, the answer is no. Let's start in BITO, the big dog out there. Looking a little bit smaller this week, 22 3/4, down 3.5 points since our show last week, listeners. So taking it on the chin a little bit out there. Again, no surprise. Bitcoin threatening 60K in the wrong direction. You expect BITO to be moving in lockstep with that. The ADV coming in down about 2,000 to 86,000 contracts, though if today's numbers are any indication, that's going to go back in the other direction. Again, once you start hitting these psychologically important levels, we expect to see vol and volume kind of moving. And right now we are seeing a ton of volume out there, 141,000 contracts, almost 60,000 contracts beyond our ADV. So things are lighting it up. And you might be asking, what the heck is lighting it up out there, listeners? It's weird stuff, which is kind of fun. It's why we have to crunch the numbers here on the show. If you had, with BITO plunging back below 25, back below 24, and 23 to 22 3/4, if you had the September 50s lighting up your bingo card this week as an opening buy, then you are far more in tune with the flow out here than I. Sep 50s, 5-0s, going up 15,564 times today. It's like paper buying them for prices around 13 cents. Yes, 13 cents, listeners. Sep 5-0s. I talked about this before. My lack of love for this style of trade out here in BITO for many reasons, but most salient of which being this thing pays a monstrous dividend. That's a rough way to go, buying far out of the money calls. And you're not even giving yourself that much time. September, it isn't that far away. Sounds like it's pretty far away, but you're only getting 3 months on these. That's a long way to go for BITO to pretty much more than double now with today's sell-off. And for all of that, you're not going to make much on these calls. And you're missing out on all those hefty. I mean, if it's going to rally, if it's going to double, that dividend's going to be pretty hefty. So you're missing out on all of that as well to buy these calls. So yeah, not my favorite, but somebody likes this. Putting up 15,500 today. Worth noting, this is not the first time they came to dance on this strike. They came, actually looks like it was last week. It was, Friday again, June 21st, when BITO was hanging out around 24 and a quarter. They came in and bought 8,600 more, also for 13 cents. So this has been their trade for a little while now. And obviously more paper going up today. So clearly this is opening paper. This is not closing. So people are opening for size, total of nearly 20,000 contracts now on these SEP 50s, 5-0s in BITO. Again, that's why we crunch the numbers, listeners. I would not have guessed that coming into today. If you're looking at what is the size position right now in BITO, it's still the Jan 30s, 113,000 of those, followed by 73,000 for number 2 of the Jan 35s. Those were looking obviously a lot better a week and change ago than they are now. I've already mentioned my lack of love for these kind of out-of-the-money call purchases. Those are at least a little bit more relevant, and you have much more time for those to work out. SEP 50s, 5-0s for 13 cents. That's what's going to go on in the world of Bitcoin, listeners, to get us to even threaten a 50 strike by September expiration. I don't know. If passes prologue, they're probably going to be buying more of these. So somebody is looking at the chain saying, those are cheap. I want those. Probably ignorant of all the other things we're just talking about. Dividends, the impact on the calls, and all the other stuff along the way. But impressive and maybe perhaps head-scratching paper out there in BITO. And let's throw out Greg's favorite as well. He's always talking about when he's on the show. This is BitX at a 33 even right now, down about 8.25 points. So I've said it before, I'll say it again. If BITO selling off, $3.50 over the past week, if that's too timid, too tepid for you, how about BitX off 8.25 this week? Again, this is your levered 2x bad boy out here, so you expect it to do stuff like this. But still, I mean, that's some paper, listeners. In terms of ADV, it's back down to 14,000, giving up about 1,000 contracts over the week, which is kind of interesting because they're putting up numbers today. 18,000 contracts on the tape in BitX today. What's the big dog? We've got, by the way, BitX going XDiv today, so bear that in mind. We've got the July expiring on the 5th, so in the weeklies, 35 puts. These are slightly in the money puts. And then we also have the 33 puts going up 1,200 times, opening on both. So maybe a bit of a vertical out there, 12 to 13, 1,400 times, 35, 33 put spread. Interesting if that's the case in the money strike. In terms of vol, we are at 106 right now in BitX. It's up 7 points. And the top size position, we talked about this before, 7,100 of these Jan 2026 70 puts. So long-term, $37 in the money puts. That's what we've got going on out there in BitX. And not to be outdone, let's go to Mara really quickly. Mara, 1860 when we kicked off the show, down $1.50 since last week. The ADV, 271, so coming down 10,000 from this time last week. And looks like we might be, let's see, got about less than an hour left, so it'd be a struggle, but it could get there. 204,000 contracts on the tape, so it's got to put up some numbers before the end of the day. Vol-wise, 86, down about 5 points out here in Mara. And the top position right now are 23,000 of the SEP 30. So again, going out to September. Now, we've said it before in some of the other crypto names, like ETH in particular. They're typically dominated by volume and open interest in the quarterly expirations. Maybe some of these crypto-related names are starting to get that flow as well. We just talked about BitO lighting it up on the SEP 50s. Here we have the SEP 30s in Mara, 23,000 of those for the number one size position. After that, we have the Jan 2025 10 calls, 22,000 of those. Yeah, those are looking pretty good. But intriguing stuff out there in Mara as well. Is there anything lighting it up in the altcoin universe? Well, let's find out, listeners.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe. And you know what, listeners? When the big dog is down in Bitcoin, that usually tends to bring the rest of the crypto top 10 with it. Is that the case again this week? Well, the answer looks like it's yes, listeners. Only cost you $13.25 billion to break into the top 10 this week, so down slightly on the week. That gets you to our old pal Cardano. On number 9, our old friend Doge hanging out number 9 still this week, $16.8 billion worth of market cap. Number 8 is Toncoin, 18 pretty much even billion worth of market cap. So managing to outpace Doge. Last week, they were kind of neck and neck on the market cap front, but Toncoin taking the lead this week. Number 7 is our old friend XRP, 26.25 billion. Number 6 is USD Coin, 32.6 billion. Number 5, it's Solana, 59.5 billion. Number 4, it's BNB, 82.8 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, 113, pretty much even on the market cap front. Number 2, it's ETH, threatening to break 400 billion in the wrong direction, hanging out at 403 right now, listeners. And number 1, you know what it is. It's Bitcoin, 1.18 trillion worth of market cap. So on the week, this down 10.25%. ETH down 7.5% on the week. I mean, it's been a bit of a bloodbath. Solana down 12%. XRP giving up 8%. Doesn't have much to give. Giving up 8%. Toncoin down 7%. Doge 12.5%. And Cardano down 10.5%. So does the sinking tide suck down all ships? The answer this week, at least, is yes. And we can see that out in ETH as well. 32.99 when we kicked off the show. So just a tick below 3,300. On the show last week, it was at 35.66, so down 267 handles on the week. But that wasn't the low. The low, just like Bitcoin, came right before the start of our show today, 32.43 out there, so bouncing off the lows. The high came last week during our show, 36.34. So a lot of living going on out there in ETH this week. Is that being reflected in the vol and the skew? Let's find out. Let's go out to the vol front first. 7-day vol. Last week, 57. This week, 61. So popping again. As you're starting to hit and threaten these psychologically important levels, you expect to see that playing out on the vol and the skew front, and that is exactly what we are seeing. 30-day vol, 61.2 last week, 61.4. So kind of hanging out firm there. And 6-month vol, 70.25 on the show last week, 72 this week. So actually popping a little bit this week, which is kind of interesting. Let's get out on the skew side and see what's going on. Intriguing evolution there as well. Looks like the fact that we are rebounding from the lows is giving some optimism, at least on the options front. Weekly skew went from about a positive 0.5 point last week, so pretty much flat, to positive 3.2 points this week. So looking firmly in the upside bullish bias here, at least from a vol perspective, on ETH skew, which again is kind of fascinating. If we go out the 30-day level, same deal, 3.4 this time a week ago, and 5.2 this week's up nearly 2 points, 1.8 points on the week out here, which is pretty fast. I'm looking to see the apex here for what we've got going on the skew front. And we pretty much are pretty close to it. The apex for weekly skew was 3.75 points. That actually came last night. And looks like 30-day skew right about here. It's been right around 5.25 for pretty much the last day. And then going out on the 6-month skew last week, 6.2. This week, 7.4. So it looks like maybe the ETH fans looking at this little bit of a pullback as a buying opportunity, because we're looking strongly biased to the upside across the skew front. Kind of interesting. Let's see what's going on in the rest of the altcoin universe, listeners, and we'll get out here for this week. Like we mentioned kind of at the start of the altcoin universe, this pulling the drain here on Bitcoin, sucking everything down with it. Solana 145.95 last week, so nearly 146. 127.90 this week, down 18 handles, 18.05 to be precise. So quite the walloping on the Solana front. We'll see if folks out there are looking for opportunities to maybe start stepping in and buying, or do they need to keep dropping even more, listeners, before we see some sort of equilibrium out there. They're saying the critical support right now for those folks who follow technicals out here in the crypto is at 116. So got a ways to go before we hit that at 127.90 as we kicked off the show. Yeah, 116. If we hit that, then it sounds like look out below, listeners. And then if they say after that, they say next stop is probably that next big psychological level, which is, of course, 100. And this sounds optimistic. They're saying here, if they can clear this support, then maybe a rally is in tune back up to 189. That's a long way to go. I'm not sure if I'm feeling that much optimism, but yeah, the near-dated downside pressure certainly makes some sense. Speaking of downside pressure, XRP, 51 cents last week, 47 cents, giving up another 4 cents. Doesn't have much to give and has given up 4 cents. That's a rough one. Dogecoin, 13.2 cents last week, 11.6 cents this week, down a whopping 1.6 cents. I guess they need Musk to talk it up again. Litecoin, 77.67 last week, 69.05 this week, down 8.62. So another drubbing out there. Cardano, 41.2 cents last week, 36.7 cents this week. So down about 4.5 cents on the week. Polkadot, 6.25 last week, 5.61, down a little over 60 cents this week. Everyone's favorite Shiba Inu. A million zeros, 1973 last week, listeners. This week, 1654. So once again, no Shiba Lambos for any of us. All right, listeners, that is going to do it for us here on the Crypto Rundown. Kind of a Just the Facts, ma'am edition. Get you in, get you the data, get you on about your lives. I want to thank the folks over there at Amber Data. AmberData.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. If you are intrigued by all this stuff and want to learn more, want to check out all the positions, the trades, the skew, everything else in a lot more detail. We really just have time to scratch the surface here on the show. Check it out, AmberData.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. That's going to do it for us on the network today. Back again tomorrow for the advisor's option. Our buddy Mr. Matt does a lot of interesting back tests and analysis, so if that's your bag, join us on the advisor's option. Fascinating stuff going on out there. Wednesday, for all of you who are new to the world of options, Options Bootcamp, doing a doubleheader this week. So make sure you check that out, Options Bootcamp, wherever you find your finer podcast programs. Thursday, This Week in Futures Options could certainly be interesting to a lot of listeners of this show. We talk about just about everything else trading on the planet out there, over there on CME. So metals, ags, energy, and indeed crypto. Got to tune in each week to see what's lighting it up there. Friday, Volatility Views for all you cool kids who like a little bit of vol talk and listen to a show like this. So that might intrigue you. And then, of course, after that, for all of our pro members, we've got pro Q&As and options oddities this week as well. Learn more about that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. Then we're off for the weekend. Hope you folks have a nice, restful one. Of course, crypto never stops. And we're back again on Monday. Another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.